Hello, welcome once again to Testimony Tuesday. Thank you for following and thank you for liking it. I know you're going to like it. In fact, you're going to love it. And thank you for sharing. We have with us today someone who has her husband, Nathan, has a very, very unique ministry. And Mollie, without further ado, why don't you tell us about Morgan's Place, how that came into being and what that ministry is about, because it is unique. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I am Mollie, and I'm from Morgan's Place Cemetery. And I always like to kind of start it off by talking about Jeremiah 1:5, you know, how the Lord, knew us before we were born. Every baby was created with a purpose, not born, but created with a divine purpose. And for some families, maybe like some of yours, my baby's divine purpose wasn't to live. That's a hard one. But sadly, their divine purpose was to die, to be born into the arms of Christ, so that my family, the Verdier family, could serve God the way that He designed us to. As a mother of 9 living children, I've been very blessed to see many beating hearts on an ultrasound screen, some as early as 6 weeks in the womb. It's always been a miraculous feeling, but it wasn't until I saw my baby with no beating heart did I really understand what a miracle life truly is. Through the grace of our loss of our 2 babies, Morgan and Marion, we've been brought to Morgan's Place Cemetery. We are a very unique cemetery. I would say we are to our knowledge, we're the only known cemetery that is 100% charitable and solely for the burial of the unborn, miscarried, stillborn, and aborted babies. After the loss of our babies, my husband and I donated 2.5 acres out of our 80-acre farm to the charitable burial of babies. So just to kind of share a little bit about my story so you can understand our ministry. Back in 2018, I wrote this letter to Christ, and it was on my birthday. And I asked Him for 2 things. I asked Him to allow me to have another baby, which I wanted so desperately, and for Him to help me know what my divine purpose was. From then, later that month, I found out I was pregnant. And I always like to say, from the very life and really ultimately the death, the Lord really did grant me both my birthday wishes that year. From the beginning, Morgan just didn't look right. Serial ultrasounds and blood tests just revealed that we were ultimately going to miscarry her. After 5 weeks of not being able to pass her naturally, I ended up needing a D&C. But before I had that procedure, I started to look and see what happens to babies when they're surgically removed in the hospitals. And in Ohio, the majority of babies are disposed of as medical waste. But also the beautiful thing in Ohio is that you have the opportunity to get your baby back, because there are some states that don't allow you to get your baby back after you lose them under 20 weeks in the hospital. So when I went in for my procedure, I just kind of told my doctor that I wanted to take my baby back because I wanted to give her a dignified burial. And she said she didn't think that was possible. And I simply said, well, I know my rights. And so she was our champion that day. She went and checked everything out and came back and she said, you know what? You can get your baby back, but there is a process to that. The baby will have to go to the lab and then to a funeral home, and then you can have your baby. So when we left the hospital that day, we just kind of were met with those traditional hardships that any family comes across when they lose a baby, dealing with funeral homes and cemeteries. Luckily for us, in our county, we had a funeral home that offers to prepare babies for either burial or for cremation at no charge to the family. Sadly, though, nobody told us that when we were in the hospital. We just kind of came across it when we called. So that night when my husband brought our baby Morgan home and placed her on our mantle, which is where she still is today, waiting to be buried at Morgan's Place, my focus kind of turned, and it was to where I would bury her. And this fire just started to burn inside of me, but it wasn't a fire of rage, it was a fire of love. To bury this baby. It's just such a hard thing.
Yeah, sure.
To bury my baby on our 200-year-old family farm. But through our faith, we consulted with our priest, and he suggested that our baby be placed in a cemetery. So I started reaching out to cemeteries, and I was just in disbelief that a baby that was just millimeters in size could cost anywhere from $500 to $700. Some cemeteries were $1,000 to be placed individually in our own plot, or $300 maybe to be placed just above my grandfather and his. And I just started to see why some families maybe would allow people to dispose of their babies, or for them to bury them in unmarked graves or in backyards by a tree. One night, my husband and I were having a pretty big disagreement about where to bury the baby. My husband wanted to follow the teachings of the church and place her in a cemetery, and I really just wanted her close to me. And I remember saying to my husband that night, if you make me bury our baby in a cemetery far from our home, or I can't visit her each and every day if I wanted to, that I would never ever forgive him for that. And I don't know if any of you have ever had the opportunity to watch someone pray after your words had really just hurt them. But that night I did just that. And I watched Nathan sit on the edge of the bed and pray. And I asked God that night to just really soften one of our hearts, because it was creating this rift in this beautiful and loving marriage that we had. And that night I went to bed, and at 3 a.m. my eyes just kind of popped open. I sat straight up, and it was like the Lord just stamped it on my heart. And I just said, Nathan, we're to open up a cemetery for babies. And I always just kind of laugh and say, Nathan didn't say no, so that means yes. So we started making plans with our state and our township, make way for this baby cemetery. Come December, I found out I was pregnant again. And I just remember going to the hospital and waiting to see that little flickering heartbeat right on the ultrasound screen, what every mother looks for. But instead we saw 3 flickering heartbeats, naturally conceived triplets, which is very rare, we're told. I had a lot of feelings that day. I was overwhelmed with love. I was humbled. I was scared. But I also had this other feeling that I couldn't quite tuck away. And when we left the hospital that day, I had just turned to my husband and I said, you know what, this gift, it just feels too big. And sadly, I was right, because 1 week later, our fraternal triplet, Mary and Philip's beautiful heart stopped beating. And as you can imagine, I was just overcome with grief. It pretty much consumed me every day. But from that loss, a beautiful gift was really bestowed upon my husband and I, and it was the desire to bury aborted babies, to provide a place for mothers, fathers, to come, to be shown love, to shown mercy, and for them to honor their baby, their beloved baby. So from there, Morgan's Place has been kind of evolving over the last couple years, and we've focused a lot more in Shelby County, but we're ready to kind of move out. And Logan County is really only like 10 minutes from our border, from where we're at. We're within miles of Logan, Champaign, and Miami County. We're on State Route 589. It's in Sydney, and we will provide all families that lose a baby, an unborn baby, with a funeral, a burial, a grave marker, a casket or an urn, a burial gown, keepsakes, and then if needed, we can also transport the baby back from different hospitals to funeral homes, because there are sometimes charges that occur for families. And I always think the hardest thing for me to do after we had our baby was to contact the funeral home and kind of retell my story, right? To relive that and have to tell it to every single person I talk to when I want to order a grave marker or when I want to talk to a funeral home. So for us, we want to be that liaison to all families, kind of their grief advocate. So from the moment that you hear, for me, it was, your baby's dead, there's no heartbeat. It was such a hard thing to hear, but I had to navigate through all that by myself, and I had no knowledge of what to do, what I needed, and then all these costs just kept coming at us, and I was just told so many times. or I can't help you,
Mm.
or you should talk to a friend. But when you're going through grief, sometimes you don't feel comfortable talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice if you have someone that's walked that walk and that can provide you with all the things you need. And for some people, maybe it's you don't need me to carry all those crosses for you. For some people, it's not a burden. Maybe it's part of your journey to heaven. But for us to make that call to the funeral home, it was hard, and somebody else could have done that for me. Grandparents, sometimes grandmothers want to make their child's burial gown, but if they don't, I can provide that for you. Grave marker, I can order that. I can help you design it, something that honors your loved one. Caskets, if a grandfather would want to make a casket, I can give you the blueprints, or you can take one of ours, our urns. I can help you find a funeral home that's not going to charge you, that's going to be charitable. I can help the grandparents, your children. We can help with grief support. Sometimes people don't know what they don't know, right? And they don't know how to talk to someone that's had a loss. It can be very uncomfortable.
Wow.
So those are some of the things that we do for families. And then keepsakes, little jewelry, different things that'll help you. For my babies, I never held them. I never saw them. They were much too little. I have very little keepsakes to honor them by. I've given them a name, which is a beautiful thing. At Morgan's Place, we're also going to have a center memorial wall where families that have lost babies that they weren't able to bury can come and place their name upon that wall to honor them, to have a place, a spiritual resting place where they can come. I've had mothers that have lost babies, 60 years ago that never held their baby, never saw their baby, never spoke of their loss. I have mothers that have never laid eyes on their baby, mothers that have accidentally, sadly, flushed their babies down the toilet. It happens all the time. The babies are so small. Mothers that have lived in silence with their grief and haven't felt comfortable talking about their loss, who are now they're ready to find closure on the grounds of Morgan's Place. They're ready to invite this baby back into their family and share the love. It was a gift. Babies are a true gift from God.
Sure.
And if we really believe that, then we need to provide each and every baby across the state with a dignified burial. No family should ever have to choose between a Christian burial or a financial burden with Morgan's Place.
Wow.
So that's us.
Wow. Mollie, what a story, huh?
Yes.
What a story. Hey, we got Kleenexes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Can you give us, because there's no doubt so many people that have had similar journeys, and some of them are quite lengthy, I'm sure. Right. And the value of being able to internally heal from that, I just think is paramount. And you all are not just providing a physical place, yes you are, but you are providing a support, you're providing information, people walk along beside you all, them. Why don't you tell us, hey, first of all, we would encourage you to go to the website. Tell us what that call is.
Sure, it's morgansplacecemetery.org, and I would say that grandparents are often one of the ones that contact us because they're reading about us in the newspaper, or somebody told them about it, and then they let their children know when they encounter a loss. Grandparents grieve, siblings grieve, tough dads grieve. Everybody is affected by infant loss because it doesn't discriminate. Yeah. There's no race, gender, socioeconomical status, occupation. Everyone knows someone that's had a loss. So from the moment that somebody experiences a loss, Morgan's Place can be a part of your journey. Okay, so if you know someone that has just got the terrible news that their baby has passed, we can help them in a variety of ways. We can, if they're having a surgical procedure like a DNC, we can tell them what to expect. We can help them connect with a funeral home. We can provide them with an urn. We're our cemetery will be open in a couple months for burials, but everything else we're doing. Burials are the only thing that we're not providing at the moment.
But everything else
is provided. Yes,
currently. Yeah.
Everything else is provided currently. We're on Facebook. You can reach us there. I can provide my telephone number for your pastor. He can put it on your website. I take calls all the time, all day long. Yeah, you know, it's very difficult because there was, you know, these babies, like I said before, that I never held, I never touched, I never saw, but the Lord allowed me, thankfully, to feel the full gravity of that loss. And I think sometimes people diminish grief by the size of the baby. And that is so not true, because I felt every missed smile, every missed I love you.
Sure. Yeah.
Every missed moment that I could have ever had with those children. And it was for this reason.
Yeah. And,
you know, so I could provide this service.
Yeah.
And we have a ton of volunteers that help out. You know, it's obviously not just me. I always say the Lord put this on a grieving mother's heart. But it's, you know, the whole community that's helped bring Morgan's Place to life,
Good.
To make it a service, because you know, he could have chose anywhere in the whole world, right? Anywhere in the country to put a cemetery like this, but he chose, you know, right here, just, you know, under 30 minutes from you guys.
30 minutes away. Yeah. Wow.
So
Mollie,
close.
thank you all so much for what you're doing. Your website, your phone number will be at the bottom of the screen. Right. You'll get this, and it'll be available. I would encourage you. You got to share this. I know we get some good testimonies here, and you all have been so good about sharing, but there is just a lot of people. A lot of people has got to hear this. What Mollie's quote is, "We don't know what we don't know."
Right.
But now you can make people aware, and they get the help they need, to get the support they need. And man, I just thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for you and Nathan and your family, God bless your family. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. And one other thing, if I could say.
Yes.
Sometimes medical professionals, again, don't know what they don't know. It's not just families. So if you know a nurse out there, if you know a doctor out there, let them know that there are laws that are passed in Ohio that protect the unborn, right? There was a law that was passed in 2008. It allows the family to get their baby back. If you suffer a loss in the hospital, if you, you know, lose a baby, you need a D&C. If you lose a baby at home, you can still bury this baby. There are processes that you have to go, because, you know, there are laws out there.
Sure.
But you can contact Morgan's Place. We can help you sort through that. We want everyone to have the ability to give their baby a dignified burial if that's their family's wish. So, thank you.
Well, and then also, so, you know, you have you're erecting a memorial wall.
Yes.
And that could be something that's happened to you many years ago.
Yes.
But yet you can come here to Morgan's Place and experience closure, and so
if you have babies, if you have a baby that you have the cremated remains, and you have them, like I have my babies up on my shelf, right? If you have babies there and you want a forever resting place for your baby, Morgan's Place could definitely be the place where my family can care for your baby's resting place for the rest of our days. There's lots of ways that you can support our mission. Actually, in Logan County, over in Bell Fountain at Winter's Harvest Barn, at the end of October, we are going to be having a dinner and a concert with a band called Sold Out. The event's not sold out. The group's called Sold Out, and it's a gospel band. It's a gospel band, and it's a catered dinner, a nice concert. And, you know, all the money goes back to providing dignified burials for the unborn. And it'll be a great night, October 29th.
All right. Put that down. Again, thank you, Mollie. Hey, share it. Come on now, share it. God bless you.
Thank you.